As you know, there are a lot of differences between East and West. The Western civilization is on expressing yourself. The East on listening. I think both have reasons. You have to listen well and you have to be able to speak. But without interaction, it's very difficult to convey your ideas. So before entering to second section of my lecture, I ask you to make 3 questions. Whoever it can be, ask me 3 questions without which I would not proceed. So, questions, anything you want about international relations, about relationship between East and West, anything, please ask questions. 3, then I will proceed. Any question?
I just had one question about, or just the question about China and its relationship with North Korea, and what's their stance with the North Korean and South Korean issue at this point. And I know you discussed how China felt about THAAD with South Korea and the U.S., but I was curious what if you know anything about China and North Korea and what their stance is on North Korea's nuclearization.
Truly excellent question. She's asking what is China's position to North Korea and China's approach to Korean Peninsula. Really, really excellent question. Remember, difference between East and West. West is represented by the United States, East by China. They influence half of the Korean Peninsula. The approach by 2 protagonists are quite different, beyond the imagination. First, how do you think America deals with South Korea as ally? It is about proselytism. It is about good influence or interference, if you will. So America tried to teach everything to South Korea, intervene everything. Without American influence, South Korea might have not realized economic development, unlike North Korea. South Korea has become 11th largest economy in the world, thanks to America. Good interference. Democracy has been realized, human rights are respected, press is liberalized, good influence. But at the same time, America interfered in all South Korean military capacity. South Korea has no right to even experiment nuclear weapons process, not even first step. If he does it, America intervenes, make it stop. America intervenes South Korean missile system. They prohibit South Korea to develop missile over certain distance. Used to be 500 kilometers, not anymore. The United States intervened South Korea for the payload we can put on the missile. How much you can put on missile. Every inch, every degree. So it's completely good interference and intervention at the same time. That is American style. But you can imagine China would do the same thing to North Korea. I will surprise you on that point. There is no military contact between North Korea and China. Can you imagine? They are allies. No military contact at all. Nobody meets military people, each other. So China does not concern really about interfering in North Korean affairs. Economic development is on your side. You want it? Go for it. I'll help you. I do not like you develop nuclear weapons. But if you did it without my knowledge, I will deal with it. But I do not intervene in every aspect of what you do. So there is no virtually interference between China and North Korea. That is typical of their tributary system. Unlike Western interference, Western approach to alliance and dealing with other countries, the Western approach is projection, proselytizing, interference, everything. They won't realize what they wanted to have in their own country. So that is American system. Eastern Chinese system is they want other countries to come to them and learn from them. It's not projection. It's, in a way, centripetal, not centrifugal. Quite different Eastern-Western system. So on this point, America made a mistake because they thought, especially Obama administration, thought that the same way United States interfered in South Korea, they thought China would intervene in North Korea, they would stop North Korean nuclear weapons. That's a huge mistake. They didn't understand the difference between East and West. So they proclaimed strategic patience is our foreign policy to North Korean initiative and nuclear questions. But China couldn't move that way. Their approach is different. So they wasted 8 years waiting China to intervene in North Korea. So that comes from their inability to understand the difference between East and West. And now North Korea is making mistake because North Korea intervened, think that China dealt with North Korea, and the same way United States would deal with North Korea. That's in the mind of Kim Jong-un. He said, I'll destroy nuclear test site, I'll destroy nuclear weapons test site. Then the United States would relax economic sanctions. That was typical Chinese way. America would not move that way. So in a way, better than you may imagine, East-West, the cultural difference weighs deeply in North Korean nuclear issue. And both sides are making mistakes. So some of you may be surprised relationship between China and North America, but it's important for you to know the difference in the alliances, America, South Korea, and on the other, China and North Korea. And thank you for your excellent question. Second, third question? Yes, good.
So my question is that you talked about the relationship with the United States, thus being far based on security. So it depends on the U.S. security and the troops. And with the recent talk of South Korea and North Korea making peace and possible reunification, how can the United States still be an actor in South Korea's security? Because it's known that that the President of the United States, Donald Trump, has made his thoughts known on removing the troops, American troops in South Korea. So my question is, can South Korea be confident in its own security and military capacity without the United States, even with the peace with North Korea?
So I try to expand the scope of my lecture, but she asked me to come back to real essential question regarding US and South Korea alliance. What is the system alliance that is working for? As you know, in the year 1953, when Korean War ended, United States was hesitant to make alliance with South Korea because at the time the idea was with their old-fashioned American defense perimeter explained by America for many, many decades. That is, mainland East Asian continent does not really concern American defense. We need Japan and Philippines that will be sufficient for American defense. So they were hesitant for stationing American troops on South Korea. But at the time, South Korea wanted to have American troops on South Korea for its defense. So in one aspect, America came to South Korea for, in a way, South Korea's defense only. But as time goes by, economic development of South Korea made a fundamental change to this concept. And now, looking at Northeast Asia, which has become a crucial point for world politics. In Northeast Asia, you have America, the number one economy in the world. Number two, China. Number three, Japan. And Russia is there. And South Korea, number 11th. And North Korea, huge problem for world peace and geopolitical problems. So they pay attention to why they have American troops in South Korea, because they eliminated their troops, they will destroy the overall balance in Northeast Asia, affecting Japan's future security. So without their troops in South Korea, they feel Japan will be vulnerable. So they maintain the position that their garrisons on South Korea covers not only South Korea, but keep peace in the entire Northeast Asian region. So their scope expanded as time goes by. For South Korea, as I mentioned, in 1978, we did have the option to develop nuclear weapons, which were prohibited by America. So even though our national defense capability is the key for our own defense, but we do need American presence here as well. So until the unification happens, American assistance is crucial for South Korean defense. So after unification, what will happen? I'll explain here. We have two options. Korea become neutral. Korea become, like Germany, allied with the United States, but we do not have American troops in former North Korean territory. That is German solution. So we have to weigh the options between the two, but we prefer German options to have America as an ally, while we do not allow American troops stationed in former North Korean territory. So that is what we have in our mind. So to sum up, we do need American assistance, and we would like to maintain it after unification, but there must be American national interest involved in this scheme as well. So even after unification, we want America to maintain that alliance with the South Korea. Unified Korea will contribute to the stability of Northeast Asia. That idea we'd like to America maintain in their mind after the unification as well. So this is rather complex, but this is the idea regarding South Korean military security along the way. Thank you. So, future of North Korea. World War II produced 4 divided countries: Vietnam, Germany, China, and Korea. Usually people think about, do not forget of China, but it's important for North Korea. Among the 4 countries, Vietnam unified by a civil war, by war. Germany, by demolition of East Germany, by absorption. And what is important for the future of North Korea is relationship between China and Taiwan. With the 3 cases, 2 Koreas show off the worst case between divided countries. They are still in confrontational position. to my great regret. So what is happening for Korea is important for the future North Korean problem, and what's happening between Taiwan and China is crucial for South Korea to maintain it. So some of you who are non-Chinese may have not noticed what's happening in the two entities. It is important. Let's see what's happening in China and Taiwan. The trade between two entities, China and Taiwan, reached $200 billion. $200 billion between China and Taiwan. $200 billion. What do you think is the amount of trade between South Korea and North Korea? It's negligent. It reached less than $1 billion at the height of sunshine period. Now virtually nothing. So $200 billion, nothing. There and nothing. And there are, they say, the 30% of Taiwan's trade is going with China, but it's going up. Some say the 40-50%. So if you have $200 billion, 30, 40, 50% of trade goes to one country, the war is not possible between the two entities. That's what I envy regarding relationship between Taiwan and China. And there are, see, about 10 million people traveling each other. 10 million people per year. How many people are visiting between South Korea and North Korea? Not single one. 10 million people are there. There are 900 direct flights between China and North Korea, China and Taiwan. 900 direct flights between two entities per week. How many direct flights between North Korea and South Korea? None. Also, the bankers, insurers, other financial service, they provide work in both markets. How many business is there between South and North Korea? None. So that explains the confrontational mode between South and North Korea, despite some progress made this year between South and North Korea. So remember what's happening between China and Taiwan gives a vision for two Koreas as a future development. So this is what you can see, the problem of North Korea. This represents two images. South Korea is like an island. There is no way to go here. Island, complete island. You have to go overseas only by air force, air flight, or by a ship. No road connection between any other country because North Korea is completely darkened. That is one aspect. Second aspect is when North Korea becomes like Manchu area, like Dandong here, Manchu area, which was as black as North Korea only 50 years ago. So in 30 years, Manchu changed like from North Korea to South Korea. So when North Korea becomes as bright as South Korea, as bright as Manchu area, China, there will be no problem. There will be like Taiwan and China, there will be many direct flights per week, millions of people visiting each other. There will be trades approaching billions of dollars per year, then there will be no problem. So in your mind, maintain the idea that when North Korea joins trade paradigm, like South Korea and China, there will be no problem. At the time, nuclear weapons will disappear in North Korea. So that's the image we have to maintain. But here you have a serious problem because North Korea has a deep dilemma, mortal dilemma regarding trade paradigm. as I tried to explain, you have to free your citizen. Your citizen must engage in joint venture enterprise and receive salaries that will make your country to become truly economic development avenue. Unless, as North Korea controls every citizen, there is no economic development. Currently, North Korea economy developed around 3% for last 10 years. That is very good record. But that is because Kim Jong-un allowed a small amount of farmland to each family. They can produce things, and he allowed to local markets, and they can sell there to maintain themselves. That is limited approach to Western North Korean economic development. The same way like Soviet Union. Stalin and the leaders, they allowed 2% of Russian farmland to each family. In the end, from 2% of individual farmland, they produced 50%, from 2 to 50, all our agricultural product of Soviet Union. But Stalin and other leaders could not break this system. So there is a limited economic growth, but without personal freedom, there will be no economic development in North Korea. So if Kim Jong-un allows economic freedom, his regime may collapse. If he does not allow individual freedom, his regime may collapse as well in the end. So that is mortal dilemma for North Korean regime. They cannot maintain complete control. In the end, regime may collapse. They cannot allow individual freedom to citizens. He cannot maintain his regime. So Kaesong Industrial Complex is a key point. It started 15 years ago with 2,000 North Korean workers. In 10 years, it grew rapidly. In the end, we had 53,000 North Korean workers. But the problem is we pay the salary to North Korean government, not the individuals. The North Korean government takes 80% of the salary, and they gave 20% to North Korean workers. They're twice of average North Korean income. So it provides, in a way, a benefit to everybody. South Korea has excellent workforce in North Korea, and Pyongyang is very happy. They have 80% of salaries in their pocket, and North Korean workers, they have twice of average salary in North Korea. That means North Korea does not allow citizens to come to Kaesong Industrial Complex. In the morning, North Korea provide all the 53,000 workers in bus. They take them to complex. In the evening, they take them, all of them, to outside of the complex to their own house in Kaesong area. There is no individual freedom at all. And government is free to replace or sack or stop anything they want. So with such an entity, economic development cannot possibly happen. So important thing you have to know is in North Korea, not a single citizen is employed by foreign companies or embassies for joint venture, anything. Not a single person, because government does not lose control of individual freedom. I would be very happy if I could see a single North Korean citizen is employed by foreign companies or joint venture embassies and receive a salary and spend as he or she wants it to be. That never happened. If it happens, something great will happen in North Korea. In a way, North Korea has two options: Chinese option and Soviet option. And North Korea is following Soviet option. They divert every resources to weaponization. Soviet Union was very proud of military parity with the United States. 700,000. In the case, 1,200,000 nuclear weapons like United States. But economy didn't work, so it collapsed. So if North Korea maintain nuclear weapons, neglect economic development, it may collapse like North Korea, like Soviet Union. So that means Soviet Union is not the card for North Korea. It must opt for Chinese option. Open up and reform the society to receive foreign investment. Without foreign investment, its economy cannot develop. So opening up and reform is the key for North Korea, but that may bring problem for regime security. So they are stuck between there. So Chinese option, Soviet option, currently Kim Jong-un regime is opting for Soviet option, but it may have to entertain Chinese option in the end. For the engagement, for South Korea, it's very difficult to engage North Korea. Let's take example between Korea and Germany. In Germany, the Ostpolitik is the engagement of the East, worked. In South Korea, sunshine policy towards North Korea didn't work. Why? Why in Germany it worked? Why in Korea it didn't work? You have to maintain that difference between East Germany and North Korea. In case Germany, East Germany wanted something from West Germany. They want to be recognized by West Germany because it was occupied by Soviet Union. If West Germany recognize East Germany as an entity, and that will have a great boost for stability of East Germany as well as Soviet Union's occupation of other countries in the region. So West Germany wanted something from East Germany, received money for that, and allow East German citizens come to visit West Germany. So millions of East Germans could visit East Germany in 2 years of their Ostpolitik. In case of Korea, North Korea does not want anything from South Korea except economic assistance. They do not want to be recognized by South Korea. They want, until very recent time, reunification by all means. That was their idea fixed idea. So sunshine policy does not work towards South Korea because anything you want to give North Korea is becoming Trojan horse or poisoned carrot. The Kaesong Industrial Complex is a good case, but we try to expand it to other regions in North Korea, east, west, and northern part of North Korea. Pyongyang refused it, saying that that will suffocate my regime. I could collapse. So, except economic assistance, Pyongyang does not want anything from South Korea. Anything with us becomes an interference in their independence. So until today, the symptoms still remain. They do not very much like engagement of South Korea. That is like infiltration. That is like Trojan horse. That is like poisoned carrot to their mind. So they do not like at all South Korean investment in North Korea because that will bring damage to systems control of the citizen. So that is the reason why engagement does not work in Korean Peninsula. That was the reason why it worked in German entity. So I said there are 4 different divided countries: by war, unification by war, unification by gradual unification in case of China and Taiwan, because you have 40-50% trade between the countries, which is growing exponentially. In 50 years, in 100 years, what happened between the countries? Semi-unification, gradual unification. That is the reason why Chinese leaders like Deng Xiaoping said repeatedly, I can wait 100 years. Why not 1,000 years for unification of Taiwan? I'm patient because he had faith in the gradual rapprochement between two entities. That is second option. The third option is German option. Collapse of one country, unification by absorption. The three cases are present in South Korea and North Korea, but we proposed for last 50 years unification by negotiation. Think about unification by negotiation between two confrontational entities. It never happened in human history. They never agreed to unify by negotiation. So we pursued mirage in a way, impossible dreams. So that should be excluded. Unification by negotiation does not happen. So it's a propaganda. By war does not happen in South Korea because we have crucial thing to lose. It cannot be happen because the price would be too great. Absorption may happen, but important thing is the demise of North Korea, nobody can make it happen. It happens by itself. So North Korean demise can happen by North Koreans only. You can expedite it, you can stall it, it happens as it happens. So that means an important idea to your mind, that is unification of South Korea will come by default. It happens, it happens. You cannot make it. You can make it by war, by making demise of North Korea, it does not happen. By gradual unification, that's difficult to happen because North Korea is very afraid of South Korean engagement. But something happens by North Korea and demise may happen. In that case, unification will take place. So that means by default, that is must be in your mind. So if unification happens by default, you are supposed to have the idea of management, not resolution. Huge problem is in South Korea because division. If you try to resolve it, you have false ideas. You can make it happen. You cannot make it happen. You can manage it. Look at in North Korea how they manage their dilemma between nuclear weapons and economic development. What happens to the system of North Korea? You have to watch and manage situation, careful what happens, and look into the future. So management is the key because unification will come by default, not by design. Once again, unlike any other country, in case of Vietnam, in case of Germany, in case of China, unification will take place by, in a way, design. In Korea, it can happen only by default. You cannot make it happen. You have to accept it when it comes. So by default, the unification comes. When it arrives unification, we have two options, German formula and Austrian formula. German formula explained to you. Soviet Union agreed against all expectations to unification of Germany. The price unified Germany had to pay that they will remain NATO alliance, but no NATO troops will station in former East German territory. That was the formula regarding German unification. So that is another possibility. When North Korea, in the end, 10 years, 20 years, 40 years, they face demise, then German solution is one possibility. The other one is Austrian solution. In other words, something happened in North Korea and difficulties, and South Korea, China sends some troops in North Korea. then ask South Korea, I agree to unification. I withdraw my troops from North Korea, but guarantee neutrality. That is Austrian solution. So these two solutions, in the end, will come to our mind. But as I explained to you, is the interest for South Korea. We would like to maintain alliance with the United States, but Joman solution is the key in our mind. Perhaps this is not bad to China as well, because in case Korean Peninsula becomes neutral, Japan will remain alone in face of Great China in Northeast Asia. They will tempt to have nuclear weapons, which is very, very bad to monopoly of nuclear weapons of China. So there are reasons for South Korea to opt for German solution instead of Austrian solution, but you have to work for it carefully with Chinese authorities. So it may fit into your overall peace scheme after South Korean unification. So in a world, given this complex situation, you have to manage the situation, not resolve. Unification by negotiation, that is resolution, that is by design, that cannot happen. There are too many things happening regarding unification. You have to manage situation, paying attention to all aspects of the problems, and manage it towards unification, which will come with peace, not conflict. So manage the situation of North Korea. Then we go to another subject, trilateral cooperation with China. Especially Japan wanted to promote with America, of course, promote US, Japan, Korea trilateral cooperation at the expense of China. Why? Because Japan's biggest threat is China. So they want to South Korea in their realm, and three countries promote values, systems, rule of law. So in their mind, three countries, America, Japan, China, South Korea, they share democracy, human rights, rule of law, and to their mind of Japan, China is not. To their mind, China is not democratic, because they are communist regime, is not abiding by the rule of law, does not respect human rights. That is Japan's position, to which many in America agrees. But this we have to review, because South Korea has a different aspect from Japan for 4 reasons. In terms of national interest, South Korea has to resolve North Korean problem, to which China's cooperation is essential. This problem is not shared not by Japan, nor by United States. First problem is North Korea. Second problem is economic cooperation. China is by far the largest trading partner of South Korea. We have to maintain much more to China's interest, China's position, than as Japan or United States does. Third aspect is we have around, now diminishing, but 2 million ethnic Koreans in Manchu area. Neither China, neither Japan, nor United States does have ethnic group in China. So this is something we have to take care of. The fourth area, Korea is sharing border with China. So this four aspects gives special attention for Korea to maintain the perspective of relationship between US, Japan, Korea, trilateral cooperation, and China. And essential thing is how to see China from value system. So So this area gives you United States is here, is invisible everywhere here. So United States, Japan, Korea, trilateral cooperation, China, how to deal with it. And to my mind, we have to embrace China as one of us instead of eliminating China as opposed to trilateral cooperation, because we do share overall peace and value system with China, and that is a major difference between Korea and Japan. So China and the Western paradigm, according to Japan, and large part, well, about 50% of Americans say that China is communist regime. They are dictatorial. They will not continue. Demise will come in the end, like Soviet Union's corrupt regime. That is their idea. But is it true? Compare simply China with the Soviet Union. China is different from Soviet Union. Currently, China has 1 trillion trade with the US, Japan, Korea combined. $1 trillion per year. How much trade did the Soviet Union had with the three countries? Negligible at the time. China, unlike China, Soviet Union was outside of a trade regime. Now China is in the trade regime. And China holds over $2 trillion with treasury bond. So there is an interdependence between China and three countries. So if you allow that the value system is so different, how could it be made possible? They have different interpretation of democracy, human rights, rule of law, corruption, but in the end, they do share common positions from the civilizational point of view. Unlike Soviet Union, China does have laissez-faireism. So laissez-faireism, you may not know the essence of it, is a French word imported by Great Britain. Adam Smith used it in his theory. And laissez-faireism has become the paramount principle of Western market economy. But some of you, most of you does not know where laissez-faireism came from. Where did it came from? Laissez-faireism of a French physiocrat. At the time, French philosopher was called physiocrat. Where 18th century French physiocrat got the idea of laissez-faireism? They got it from China, from East. They loved at the time Taoism. They loved at the time Wu Wei principle. Wu Wei means laissez-faire. Wu Wei literally means laissez-faire. Let them do it. Chinese language, Wu Wei is laissez-faire. And 17th century, 18th century, French physiocrat came to the idea of Wu Wei, of Taoism, and tried to interpret it in Western language that came about with the idea of laissez-faireism. Let's do it. King does not intervene in the individual life of human beings in their own country. Let them work. Laissez-faire. So laissez-faireism has been in China and East Asian country for 3,000 years. So that is the key why East Asian countries achieved astounding economic development. Even these days, many people, I read a New York Times article these days, they are surprised why China is succeeding economic development beyond expectations. They still do not have the explanation. They saw that Chinese economy would fail because of a communist regime, because of corruption, because do not expect rule of law, but they do not understand why a country which has such problems, communist regime, dictatorial, rule of law is not respected, and corruption is everywhere. Why such an economy continue to register highest economic development, economic growth per year for such a long time? How do you explain such a question? If you see a country produce highest economic development year after year for 20, 30 years, would you continue to insist that country has a huge problem in terms of rule of law, in terms of corruption, in terms of dictatorial, suffocating individual initiative? How could you maintain such a position? So the only answer to this interpretation, rise of China, is that China, like Korea and Japan and Vietnam, China does have a very similar attitude towards the laissez-faire and democracy in their own system. That's the only way. The possible explanation of why Western scholars don't understand China is today they don't understand the similar but common position between China and the West. Why such a different system? Because we do have different state formation system. In Western countries, the market economy and political economy came about with the formation of a nation state. It's a very recent phenomenon. If you read Aristotle, any scholars in Roman Empire, any scholars Middle Age, you do not find anything about political economy. They did not pay attention because at the time, Western nations were conquering nations. They provided for conquering other states. They have no intention to maintain their own country, produce their own economic benefit growth from their own nation. That didn't happen. That happened in Western countries only after Western, the making of nation state after Westphalian treaties, 1648. Only after 1548, Western countries came to think about political economy in their own country. Before it didn't happen, never entered in their mind. But with the nation state, you pay attention to political economy, you have the attention to Wu-Wei system, you pay attention to laissez-faireism. That happened in China and other East Asian countries almost 2,500 years ago. Because nation state was formed at the time already. Remember spring-autumn period, warring states period in China? That happened in 2,500 years ago. Warring states were formed in China and they focused on economic development, paid attention to laissez-faireism at the time already. So they do have these philosophical fundamentals which allowed them to observe Western paradigms in 21st century. That explains only why Japan, South Korea, China, and other similar countries like Taiwan, Hong Kong, and Singapore, they were the only country which came out of what we call mid-income trap. Only countries, because they have cultural fundamentals in their own civilization. So with this, we have to accept that we have different system, but similar to Western paradigms. Democracy, you have good governance system in Chinese East Asian economy, similar to democracy, but presented in different way. So good governance, laissez-faireism were the fundamental principles which allowed East Asia, including China, to accept Western paradigms in 21st century. So what are we going to do with the trilateral cooperation? and multi-dimensional system. It's very simple. That is, so we maintain Korea must participate actively in trilateral cooperation because we have North Korean problem. Trilateral cooperation is very important for South Korea. We do accept, participate actively in trilateral cooperation with Japan, the United States. But when it comes to China, because of many reasons which serve South Korean national interest, we have a caveat. In other words, if trilateral cooperation targets China, Korea will not be part of such a strategy. In other words, I have a concrete example with America. When they tried to South Korea join trilateral condemnation of China regarding South China Sea, I said Korea cannot be part of it. So that is the case. So we participate, but when trilateral countries, they express publicly anti-Chinese slogans, Korea will not be part of it. So we have different national interest. Lastly, we see the Korea-Japan rift and the US. We do have serious problem, which, as I explained to you, this is like mistrust, not distrust. Because Japan's problem is huge, they fail to come to terms with its own past. They fail to face the history. So if you think carefully, you can imagine Japan's position on historical issues. This is it. Japan's intervention in uncivilized East Asia since the Meiji Restoration was made with a view to make it civilized. That was the intention. Japan wanted to liberate Korea, China, and other East Asian countries from the grip of Western colonization. That is still the idea. And Japan failed in this benevolent mission because she was defeated in the war. The Tokyo War Crimes Tribunals were victors' justice. Japan is a victim, not an aggressor. That is Japan's mind, majority of them, in their psychology. Don't misinterpret it. I'm not at all criticizing Japan, but simply stating the fact. Most Japanese people have this idea. Japan is a victim. So here is the problem. We are victim colonized by Japan. Japan thinks who is victim. How can you think the relationship could be rectified through negotiation, diplomatic tools, as a mistrust? It does not happen. It should be mistrust. So deep in the mind, Japan has the idea of quitting Asia. They wanted to quit Asia. They don't want to be part of Asia. It's in their mind still. Especially, you pay attention, Fukuzawa Yukichi. You see him every day when you go to Japan. Who was the point man who said, quit Asia and join the West. As they say, 입구. Let's quit China. Let's quit Asia because they are uncivilized. Join the West, Europe, which are civilized. That is destiny of Japan. Still is in their mind. So this is the 1,000 yen note in Japan. You will see every day if you go to Japan. This is Fukuzawa Yukichi. So it's in their mind, Japan's mind. They venerate him. Quitting Asia and join the West is in their mind still. So to make a balanced statement, Fukuzawa Yukichi was a great man because he was a Renaissance man. He provided everything to Japan during Meiji Restoration. For example, he founded Keio University. He established Jiji Shinmun, and he worked for education, language reformation, women's rights, all the things necessary for Japan. The Renaissance man, his intellectual curiosity went everywhere. But the problem for him is toward other countries. He was the very person who wanted to occupy other countries. Before his death, he said, Japan's victory over China was a fulfillment of my dream, because he said China was an uncivilized nation. Japan conquered it to make it civilized. That was his dream. So this, Japan's inability to come to its past, especially explained by Ian Boruma, Wages of Guilt, Japan's inability to face history. So in this, Ian Boruma, he lived 10 years in Japan, 10 years in Germany. He said that Germany really come to terms with its own past. Repentance is the key. Japan, culture of shame, they wanted to hide it beneath the carpet. They wanted to not show it. So paint Japan himself as a victim. And quitting Asia, joining the West is the result of this book as well. So if you read it, you'll find the book is condemnation of Japan because they failed to come to with its own past. But it was very popular in Japan. Critical of Japan, very popular. Why? Why Japanese loved it? Because still Japan wanted to be regarded as German of the East. They were criticized, but they were compared to Germany. That elated their emotion because we are like Western people. A very peculiar phenomenon still deep in their mind. The other element is culture of shame and Japan's past. The chrysanthemum and the sword. Another interesting book which explains why Japan does not confront the past and repent, and Japan wants to, by a culture of shame, put it under the carpet, do not face its own past. They explained it in this book. So the sword and chrysanthemum means they are both aggressive and unaggressive. Two points. Japanese people, by far the most ethical people in the world, most quiet, cooperative. At the same time, when change their mind, they can invade other countries. So culture of shame, they want to conceal it when they have something in the past. So conclusion, how to deal with Japan? So history is history, but important, it remains unmanaged. How to manage it? Future has important aspect for both Korean people, Japanese people. We have a large trade between the countries, cultural exchanges, tourism, intellectual exchanges. They have to maintain. We should not, neither in Korea, Japan, make it victim of past history. They must be preserved. So that is the key of management. So you have to keep faith with the past, but at the same time, try to maintain the future. That is management of relations between Korea and Japan. Management. Protect the future and come to face with the past. How to do it? It's easy to say, but difficult to do it. How to do it? For example, whenever the things happens in Japan, you have to open your mind and sternly point out the problems with the Japanese attitude, like Yasukuni visit by Abe, Japanese Prime Minister Abe. It cannot be condoned. You have to explain it. But the other point, you yourself, Korea, should not make past history on your own as a prime focus between those countries. You keep quiet, Korea. You don't have to, anything to gain. But as long as Japan shows their wrong interpretation of the past, you have to maintain, show clear signals. So best example is summit meeting. When Abe is revisionist, he thinks Japan is a victim. If you maintain summit meeting either in Japan or Korea, that can be a disaster. You cannot avoid making the past history. But summit meeting is necessary between the countries to maintain trade, tourism, intellectual exchanges. How to do it? So you have to have summit meeting in a bilateral settings. You have to APEC, ASEAN summit meeting, many places. There you have to have summit meeting with Prime Minister Abe, but not in their two countries. So that is culturally, currently the formula of a management. At the same time, you do not provoke attention with Japan by territorial disputes. To this mind, I think Korean presidents, it happened about 7 years ago, visit of Dokdo Island was a mistake. You do not make such a problem with Japan. But if Japan make a problem with Dokdo, you have to sternly rebuke it. But you yourself do not make it your own. The other point is China has a huge problem, also Japan, past history. But the important point to manage it, Korea should not join hand with China against Japan with history. So that will damage the future relationship. So this is the key, management of relationship. You do not hide the history, but you have to protect the future. In that case, not resolution. Resolution is not possible. You can resolve the history issue between Japan and Korea because Japan has a wrong psychology on that issue. But you have to manage this issue. In other words, protect the future, not become a prisoner of your past. Okay? That is the end of my lecture. Any question, comments? I wish you good luck.